Hey, welcome to another episode of the Overcoming Adversity podcast. I'm your host, Michael Allison. Today's guest is Cody Sizemore. He's a devoted financial coach here to tell us a little bit more and get us a little bit smarter about how to do some smart things with our money, man. Welcome to the show, Cody.
Thank you, man. Happy to be here, man. Thanks a lot.
Man, thank you so much, bro, for being here. I want to hop straight into it, man, because money is one of the biggest topics that people will always want to talk about. That causes a lot of stress, a lot of worry in people's lives, man. So, can you tell us a bit about your financial journey and what even inspired you to become even a financial coach, man?
Yeah, I think that my journey is a little bit different than most people who are in this field,
Yeah.
because I actually come from the music industry.
Okay.
So about 8 to 10 years ago, I was in a touring band, and we were doing like really well actually. Like we were going coast to coast. I think we played like 46 states of the continental United States. Recording with in New York with like a multi-platinum record producer, playing all these big festivals. Like everything was great, man. Uh, but everything had to come to an end because the one thing that was not great was my own personal finances. I just remember getting to a point to where we were in like the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma one night, probably like 2, 3 in the morning, and we stopped at a gas station to fill up and refuel and all that kind of stuff. And I was hungry, so I hopped out of the van, looked into my wallet, nothing in there, and I was like, okay, well, I probably have something available on my card. I had $1.03 available on my card.
Mm.
And I was just like, how in the world could I ever let this happen? And how can I continue to keep doing this kind of thing? So I had a really big shift in my life to where everything felt like it was just coming crashing down. And, at first I kind of embraced that starving artist kind of lifestyle, but
Yeah.
it just caught up to me, man. That's really what happened. And it reached a point to where I just had to say, like, I can't keep doing this. And when I got home from that tour, I let the guys know that I had to stop because I had to figure this out. And it was at that point where I was like, I am going to figure out literally everything that I can about money because I am never allowing money to take my dream away from me ever again, kind of thing. So that's how it kind of started, and I kind of went down like this whole rabbit hole of just learning and figuring out money. And then when I finally got my situation cleaned up and in a really good place, I kind of found that I found a new passion with it. It was
Hmm.
very interesting to me, and a lot of my friends started asking me questions about it. So I started helping them, and one thing led to another, to where I was like, I think I want to help people overcome what I overcame.
Right.
So, I launched that, Sizemore Financial Coaching back in 2020, and have just been writing it out ever since, and it's been great, man. I've been working with hundreds of people over these last several years, and collectively, they've seen a positive impact in their finances, whether it be paying down debt, building up savings, investing, of almost $5 million collectively, which is incredible to just be kind of a part of. So that's how I kind of got started. That's what started it all, and all that kind of stuff. So.
Congrats, man. Congrats, man. So, being someone in the space that you're in now, what are like some of the common financial mistakes that you see people are making, and how can they even avoid this?
Yeah, so I think that some of the common mistakes is really just like winging it, to be honest with you. A lot of people, like they operate in a very, what I would say is like a reactive kind of state with their finances. So what I mean by that is like when they get paid, they react to that and they're like, "Woohoo, I just got paid. I feel rich. I can go out and I can do all these things," right? And then like a week later, the money goes out between bills and spending, all that kind of stuff, and then
Right.
they react to that and they're like, holy cow, like I have no money. like what's going on, right? So I think that if we can shift it from being reactive to instead proactive, that's what's really the game changer. And one thing that I've kind of noticed to be a common theme with people, actually quite a bit, is that most people have way more money than they actually think.
Mm.
It's just that like the money's just not working for them in a proper way, So a lot of it just gets away from them and they don't even realize it because it's like death by a thousand cuts, right? Like there's just little things here, little things there that pile up. But if we're able to kind of like be very proactive with it, then that money actually starts to free up and they can actually do something with it that like makes them move forward towards their financial goals. So I think just being a little bit more aware, being a little bit more proactive and having a system, having a structure, that's probably the number one thing above many others.
Wow. So how does the psychological insights play a role when it comes to like your coaching approach and to
Mhm.
like a person's financial success? Because you have to change someone's mindset in regards to like the way they were before to a new way of thinking, and that also means they have to start incurring discipline, habits, consistencies, and all those things that's tied to that.
Mhm. Yeah. So what I will say is that I'm glad you brought this up because this is probably the most important part of finances, in my opinion. Like you can have the coolest spreadsheet in the world, and it's not going to do you any good unless you have this side of things figured out. And that's something that's very important to me. I take a very deep dive into the money psychology side of things with people
Mhm.
because that's the thing that really matters. So there's a I mean I could go on and on about this, but I'll just maybe say like one or two things. Number one is it's very important for people to understand what their current relationship with money actually is and how it might actually be like disempowering them or holding them back in some way. And I'll just give you like an example. There's, every person's different, of course. Every person has their own relationship with money. But I will say that there are some common trends with people, generally speaking. And one of the most common ones is that maybe someone grew up with a household that like was kind of struggling financially and they weren't able to get the things that they want and they watched their friends have the things that they wanted, and they were constantly told no, or maybe even like they had a family dynamic where there was a divorce or a death in the family, or maybe there was some form of like abuse in the family or whatever it might be. And that all kind of compounds because as you're growing up, whether you're a child or a teenager or whatever, that's a lot of stuff that you just don't really have any control over. You don't have control over your parents' relationship, your parents' financial state, and how it affects you.
Right.
So as you grow up, you kind of grow up in this sense of like, I don't really have control over anything. I'm just kind of being dealt the cards that I have, kind of thing. But then as you grow up and you go into adulthood and you get your big boy job, making big boy money, now all of a sudden you have this like autonomy to where you can make the choices. You can
Mhm.
decide. You can do all the things that you wanted to do that you weren't able to do before, and you can try and have that life that you wanted that you weren't able to have before. So then people just go off and they just start spending and they're like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get this. And they're trying to fill that kind of void or that kind of
Right.
need that they once had. So what they're really going after is this sense of control.
Mm.
But it's that very thing, which is control, that they're going after that is actually putting their finances out of control. And it's a really interesting paradigm because before, when they were growing up, it wasn't a choice. But now, as they're an adult, they're willingly doing this to themselves, but they're trying to fix the issue from their upbringing instead. And that's something that, like, when people finally understand that kind of thing, they can be like, wow, I now understand why I'm doing this, where it's coming from, what's triggering these thought patterns and actions. So now I can adjust things and actually do things that actually serve me, so that I can actually like take that power back and just move forward to where I really want to be. You know, so the relationship with money is just so important, and also just I think that figuring out a deeper purpose as to why someone wants to accomplish a goal. So, for example, like getting out of debt, that's one thing that I love helping people do. A lot of people want to get out of debt just simply because being in debt is stressful and it gives them
Right.
anxiety, and they know that they should probably try and get out of debt. Like it's what they think that they should do, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But that kind of thing, like if even one thing comes up that's unexpected or there's a challenge, it doesn't help them push through that. Like that thing that comes up typically will have people go off the rails of their plan, and again, they'll react to it. and then they'll fall off and, just be kind of stuck again. Having that purpose driven why and really understanding like what the bigger reason is, like something that really matters to them, something that's worth fighting for, that is something that's very powerful to have as like in your tool belt, because that's the thing that's going to keep you going and to see it through no matter what. So a lot of it is that money psychology side of things, and I think that that's one of the most important things.
Thank you, man. What do you believe is, like, give me one or two some effective strategies for people that grew up with the mindset that attributes money and equates it also to like some limiting beliefs around the abundance of money, having money, making money, and things that's tied to that.
Yeah, so you're saying like things that they could do kind of thing?
Yeah, like what are some strategies that somebody could implement into their lives when it comes to limiting beliefs with money? Because I think sometimes if you grow up in a certain type of environment, let's say you grew up poor, let's say you grew up in debt and all these different things and stuff like that, you kind of live in that cycle and that circle in regards to like, I can't make X amount of money. I can't do all these different types of things. So you kind of stay on that hamster wheel over and over again and kind of stay in debt, stay financially stressful, and all of these different things that's tied to that. What are some strategies that someone could start implementing into their lives to remove some of those things out of their minds?
Yeah. So there's two things that come to mind. One directly answers that question, and I think the other one is it's like a symptom of that question that can easily be addressed. So I'll start with the direct one. Um, One thing that I found that people try and do that really makes them, making progress with their goals kind of more difficult is they focus on like the external results. So what I mean by that is like they focus on, the money at the end of the month. They focus
Mhm.
on paying down a certain debt or saving up a certain amount of money per month kind of thing. And that's their focus kind of thing. But for someone who has a limiting mindset, if they're focused on that and they're either making slow progress or something came up to where there's a month where there's no progress, all it's going to happen if they're focused on that external result is that that internal mindset is going to be reaffirmed that they can't do it kind of
Right.
thing. So I think that we need to really focus on the internal results instead. So instead of focusing on like how much money you're going to save or how much money you're going to pay off, I would really just focus on like clearly defining like who that 10 out of 10 version of you is and like clearly define who that is and really work on just being that person one day at a time. Not paint the picture of like, oh, well, I'll be strong, I'll be confident, I'll be, comfortable, all the different types of things that people want. I'll be that once I'm out of debt. Like that's what people say all the time, right? Like I'll be that one day kind of thing. No, that's not how it works. You don't get yourself out of debt and then just magically become that person. That's not how it works. It's the opposite. Like you need to become that person first and then the debt will pay off, right? So I think that just like embracing who that best version of you is and just focusing on the day, like one day at a time instead of one day in the future kind of thing. Don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't worry about what's happening tomorrow. Just focus on winning the day. And then the next day comes, don't worry about what happened yesterday. Don't worry about what's going tomorrow. Just focus on winning the day and being the best version of you. That's what I think can really help with that limiting mindset.
Hmm.
And it's not something that's just going to naturally happen like immediately. It's something that will come through consistency of practicing that, right? The other side of things, like the symptom side of things, this is just like a money saving tactic, or maybe like a spending habit kind of curbing tactic. I have found that when people operate with certain areas within their finances that are behavioral based, so things like maybe fun money, like restaurants, maybe groceries, stuff like that, stuff that is based off of our choices and behaviors. If people actually make the switch to using cash instead of a card, it is night and day of a difference. Because the thing with cash is that like it's a physical and visual representation of your money, and you can see it leave your hand and you're never getting it back. Whereas with the card, you get the card back kind of thing. And it's finite too. Whereas with the card, sometimes it feels like it's infinite kind of thing, right?
Right.
So just having that finite aspect to it and that visual and physical aspect, it allows people to feel some sort of pain, you
Mm,
know? And that pain is good because it allows you to be more aware. And when you're more aware, you're more conscious of your spending. And when you're more conscious of your spending, you're actually buying things that you actually value versus just buying things because you saw it and you thought it looked nice kind of thing,
mm,
you know? And that helps with your relationship with money as well. Like you're actually more aligned with your spending habits because it's more in line with the things that you value versus just random things. So
mm.
that's a really good one that I've seen really help people quite a bit with those behavioral categories.
That's a good one, man. What are some effective ways or effective strategies for a listener that's listening when it comes to like effective budgeting and then like creating a like financial plan?
Hmm. Yeah. So first and foremost, I don't like the word budget. And the
Okay.
reason I don't like the word budget is because nobody likes the word budget. Like everyone's like, that's restrictive, right? So I call it something different. I call it a money map because that's
Okay.
really all it is. It's just a map for your money. That's it. And it has a little bit of a better connotation to it. But really, man, like, one mistake that I see people make when they try and do like a budget or a money map is that they have the first part correct to where they're seeing how much they're bringing in and they know how much is going out. So that's what they do. Like they say, okay, like my mortgage is this much, I spend this much on gas, this much on groceries, whatever it might be. But that's pretty much it. And then like as soon as they pay that stuff, they're like, okay, I crossed off the list. But that's pretty much it. They don't really have a system of what actually happens.
Mm,
So for example, if someone says, "Hey, I want to spend $500 on fun money this month," they might, write down $500, but then they don't have any way of like tracking it or holding themselves accountable to where at the end of the month they might find that they spend $1,000, and at the end of the month they'll be like, "Oh man, I spent $1,000. Guess I'll try and do better next month." But then it just happens again next month, kind of
right,
thing.
right,
Like there needs to be like a budget column to where like this is what we're planning for what to happen, and then there also needs to be a actual column that holds them accountable and allows them to see where they're at any given moment throughout
right,
the entirety of the month as well.
right,
So they can see like, hey, maybe my budget's 500 for fun and I've spent 300 and I'm halfway through the month. I'm in good shape kind of thing, right? Or maybe I've spent 400 and I'm only a week into the month. I'm not in good shape kind of thing, like that's one thing I think really, really helps just with the whole budgeting money mapping process.
Let me ask you this question, man. For parents that have kids and they
Mhm.
want to teach their kids financial freedom, financial strategies, and things like that, what are some things that a parent could start talking to their kid now that, let's just say, for example, they're in high school, they know they're getting ready to go off to college, and they're going to kind of give them their own independent and things like that. They're probably going to give them credit cards, set them up with credit cards and those types of things. What are some advice that you would give to a parent that has a child that's probably about to get ready to leave the household?
Yeah. Well, my biggest advice would be this. They're learning from you, even if you haven't taught them anything. They're
Hmm.
watching you. And with your choices, your behaviors, and even just like the overall just environment around money in the household, they're learning certain lessons from you. So my biggest thing, especially if they're older kids, like you mentioned, maybe junior high or high school, is I would actually be kind of transparent with them with your own finances. Maybe not show them every single little thing, but let them know like, hey, like we have this much in debt, we have this much in savings. This is how much we make. These are the bills, and just kind of give them like a 30,000-foot overview. Because if you want them to understand how money works, they need to be able to see a real example. You know, so even like my kids, like they know everything that goes on with our own personal finances. The older one does, at least. Um, so, I think that that's number one is just leading by example. And, they have a higher likelihood of listening to you and taking that wisdom from you if you're practicing what you preach, kind of thing, and not just telling them what they should do, but then you're doing the exact opposite later on, you know? So I think it's consistency, and it's leading by example for the older kids, first and
Mhm.
foremost. With the younger kids, you know, maybe someone who's like, you know, in elementary school kind of age. One thing that I do is, you know, our kids work for their money. You know, we don't give them allowance. They earn it through chores and stuff like that. And we actually encourage them to start their own businesses like lemonade stands and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And any money that they make, whether it be through their own entrepreneurial ventures or just through doing chores at the house, we actually set them up with different envelopes. And, you know, every dollar that comes in, we split that between three different envelopes. So one would be spending, which is always their favorite one. One would be saving, and the other one would be giving as well. Because those are the three things that, you know, I believe that money should be doing at all times. You should always be spending money and enjoying it. You should always be saving money and preparing, and you should always be giving and making an impact.
Mhm.
So, you know, if a kid makes 15 bucks in a week between their chores or, you know, a lemonade stand, whatever, uh, then $5 would go into each envelope kind of thing,
Mhm.
and it would grow over time. And of course, they'd spend some and whatnot. But it allows them to know the purpose of money, that not everything's meant to be spent, not everything's meant to be saved, and not everything's meant to be given away. There's a balance there, right?
Mhm.
And we've done that with one of my kids, and she buys her friends their birthday gifts. We don't buy them; she does
Wow.
with her own money, and it means so much to her because she does that. You know, she also gives to the church because that's a part of her upbringing and, you know, her money identity there. And she saved up to buy her own Nintendo Switch. You know, it was $200. She saved for quite some time to do that. But when she bought that, she loved it. She absolutely loved it. And I even said, "Hey, do you want me to cover the tax on this?" And she goes, "No, I want to do it." This is an 8-year-old. You know? And I'm like, "You don't want me to cover the tax?" She's like, "No, this is my money." And I'm like, "Okay, sister," you know? So, I think that doing that with the younger ones, if you can do that early, it really sets them up for going into high school and even beyond high school as well.
When you have clients, right? And look, we're speaking of your adult clients, and they come on board with you, and they said, "Hey, Cody, I'm I want to learn how to make my money grow. What are some
Mhm,
strategies that you're teaching your clients, working with your clients? Let's say it's real estate. Let's say it's in the market or whatever it may be. What are some strategies that you're sharing with your clients to help them? Now we've worked together, whatever it may be, but now we need to let it grow and let's see it multiply to
mhm.
never go back to this previous situation that you were in."
Yeah, yeah. So, I I'm not really a huge fan of what I would call, I guess, like, super aggressive investing.
Hmm.
And things like that would be like, you know, crypto or day trading in the stock market. Like people can do that for fun. You know, and if you're really knowledgeable about that, like I have no issue with someone doing that. I personally, it's just not my jam. I think it's very volatile and it's almost like a glorified casino kind of thing. Like if you're going into it knowing that you could very well lose everything you put in and you're cool with that, cool. Like that's totally fine. But if you're going into it like banking on this to make you money, you might be upset because only about 4% of people who day trade actually make a living profit off of it. You
Hmm.
know, that's a very low percentage. So for me, I guess one of my conservative approaches would just be to, you know, invest into retirement. One of my favorite ones would be, you know, like a Roth IRA kind of thing. If you have a match through work with your 401k, of course, get that. It's free money. But the Roth IRA, you know, it has a lot of tax benefits to it, to where, you know, it has tax-free growth, stuff like that. But I'm a huge fan of real estate investing, and I do real estate investing myself. I started doing that probably about 3 years ago. I have a portfolio of about 5 rental properties right now, and it's growing consistently. And there's a lot of different strategies to real estate investing, like a ton of different strategies. But I think that real estate is one of the best investments. There's so many benefits. Number one, you get monthly income from it, from your cash flow,
Right.
from the property of the rent. Number two, you get the appreciation from the property. Number three, you get the depreciation, so you're paying less in taxes from the property, and there's just so many benefits to it. So that's one that I'm very passionate about, with helping people, get their first property, scale it into something to where maybe they get several properties, or they start to get like a apartment complex or a multi-unit or whatever it might be. That's something that I'm very passionate about, because I think that real estate's the best investment that someone could make.
Absolutely, man. I want to follow up about something else when it comes to that and what we previously talked about. And
Mhm.
I, I remember a conversation that I was having, and it was a diversity, equity, inclusion conversation we was having, and we was talking
Mhm.
about our background demographics and how it's tied to so many different decisions that we make in life. But I
Mhm.
want to apply that same concept in regards to the the mental mindset based off our background and where we come from of our relationship with money. And some
Yeah.
people will have the fear of investing, fear of spending, the fear of so many different things in regards to like what you're doing, like investing in real estate and stuff like that, or invest in IRAs and stuff like that, because we want to see instant gratifications and we don't trust a lot of things that's going on. Can you speak towards going past or surpassing that barrier in regards to actually seeing some of the benefits of what you just spoke about?
Yeah, man. So first and foremost, any type of investment that you make, there's a risk to it. Even like some of the most conservative investments that you can make, something along the lines of like a Roth IRA. Like most Roth IRAs, they have a long-standing track record to make you money,
Yeah,
right? But even with that, like there's always a risk that you're gonna lose money, you know? Um, and real estate too, like that's one of the best investments that you can make if you do it right. There's a lot of ways that people have gotten burned in real estate investing. Um, but my biggest thing is like, with that fear, there's there's two things I want to say. Number one is that if you're afraid to lose by playing the game, you're never going to win. You're just not. So if you say like, oh well, I don't want to lose, so I'm not going to play the game. Well, then you're not going to win the game either. And if you're not winning, I mean, there's only two options here. You're either winning or you're losing, kind of thing.
right.
So if you're not winning, you're losing by default, anyways. Because you're losing because your money is staying in a savings account that's earning 0.01%, whereas inflation is 9% kind of thing. So you're losing money, kind of thing. So if you want to win, you got to give yourself that chance to win. Otherwise, you're going to lose anyways. So that's number one, is like, give yourself a shot. You know, I think the worst fear is the fear of regret. To be honest with you, when you get to the end of your days and you're sitting on your rocking chair and you're like, what could I have done with my life, kind of thing. I'd much rather you try and fail than not try at all, kind of thing. So that's number one. There's another thing about fear too, is like, there's this metaphor about this cow and this buffalo. So if you think about a open field, there's a cow and a buffalo in the field, and they're chilling. They're doing their thing. They're grazing, and then all of a sudden they hear this rumbling in the distance, and there's like a big storm, right? Like lightning, thunder, hail, the whole 9 yards, right?
Mhm.
They look up at that storm. They look back at each other, and they say, "Holy cow! There's a storm coming. What are we gonna do?" And the cow goes, "That thing looks ugly. I've been through a storm before. I don't want nothing to do with that thing. So I'm going to run away from that thing." So that's
Right.
what he does. But the thing about cows is that like, they're not very fast. And eventually what's going to happen is that storm's going to catch up with that cow. And because the cow's going in the opposite direction, and the storm is also headed that direction too, the
Mhm.
storm's going to catch up with that cow, and he's going to keep running with that storm. And he's going to
Mhm.
stay in that storm way longer than he needs to.
Mhm.
Way longer. He's like prolonging his suffering. Even if he were to stay in one spot, the storm would go over him faster. But because he's running with it, he's prolonging his suffering. Whereas the buffalo, he goes, this storm is coming towards me. I'm going to run into it, because then our paths will cross. kind
Right.
of thing. And I'll be able to get through that storm a lot quicker, and I'll be able to get onto the brighter days ahead, right? And I think that a lot of people, especially with finances, whether even just be looking at the finances, they're cows, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's a scary thing. But that's the thing about fear is like, and courage as well. It's like when you have that courage to turn around and take a stand for yourself and give yourself a shot, you can have the ability to get through that storm a lot quicker and live that life that you really want. And I think that that's a really, really good kind of like mental perspective to have with any sort of financial fear that you might have.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for that, man.
Hmm.
So as we get ready to wrap up here, Cody, man, I got two more questions for you. For our listeners that's listening, man, and they're on the fence and they're saying, should I call Cody up to help me with my finances and things like that? Can you give us one or two, some of your success stories of people that you've helped and some lives that you've changed?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Um, well, there's this one woman, she was from Florida, who had a pretty bad relationship with money and bad relationship with her husband as well. Um, her husband was struggling with like addiction with, drinking and smoking and stuff like that. And he also was kind of, I don't know, I guess like mentally a little bit abusive,
Mhm.
like just the dynamic between the two of them was not very good. And she was living paycheck to paycheck. And, we kind of talked through things with her, and we got her from living paycheck to paycheck to instead having a surplus every single month of $3,500 a month.
Wow.
A month, a month. Okay. So
Hmm.
then, fast forward 6 months, she had paid off about 25 grand in debt.
Hmm.
She started communicating with her husband with the spending habit tactics and also the relationship with money and also the communication between the two of them. Their
Hmm.
relationship actually blossomed quite a bit to where he was actually recovering from alcoholism because he was spending less money on it. He was being more intentional. He had a new fire, a new purpose that was ignited, and they were working as a team. So their
Nice.
relationship got better. They were spending less money on this stuff. His health improved, and they had 4 kids. And the 4 kids noticed what was going on. They started asking questions, and then they started like celebrating as a family with every debt that they paid off. They're like, yes, like let's go out to dinner. And like, the kids were asking questions like which debt is next, and like all this kinds of stuff, right? And just seeing that not only that financial transformation for that family, but really seeing the family blossom. That was the real prize to me.
Man, that's
Um,
awesome, man.
Yeah, because at first, man, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, dude, in that very first consultation that we had, she was talking to me about her husband, and she literally uttered the phrase, "I don't even know why I'm married to this man."
Oh, wow.
And 6 months later, to see where it was, I was just like, "Man, the money stuff is great, but
Mhm.
seeing this family healed is
Yeah.
even better," you know?
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
that's just one example.
Man, thank you for sharing that, man. So, what are some tools that family could start using right now today if they're just struggling financially and they're not ready to take any leaps or bounds? And what is something that they could start doing today to just help with them their finances right now?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One is one that they can just do on their own time and with their own resources, and one is one that I can actually, like, give them too as, like, a gift.
Hmm.
Um, so one would just be to, like, I would say just go through your transaction histories. Like, maybe print them out and, start highlighting, like, the areas that maybe are not just regular expenses, like regular bills, and it's really just, like, your spending habits, right? And just start asking yourself the question like, why did I spend this and what was the purpose of it? And did I get the value that I really wanted from it? Kind of thing. And if
Mm-hmm.
the answer is, did I get the value? If the answer is yes, then highlight it green. If the answer is no, highlight it red. And then just look at it. Look at it. Even just having that visual aspect of seeing, where your values lie and what you actually spend your money on, and if it's serving you or, benefiting yourself or the family, that can be a big wake up call. And I
Yeah.
think that that's probably the first step is just facing the music, and
Hmm.
just seeing what's going on so that you can then decide how do we move forward from here,
Hmm.
and that would be step 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's one thing that anyone could do right now. Um, as far as like a gift to the listeners, I have a webinar that I did, and I'd be happy to give anyone that wants it. The webinar is called "Master Your Money: 5 Simple Shifts to Rapidly Eliminate Your Debt and Amplify Your Wealth." So anyone can find that. You just need to type into your web browser www.masteryourmoney.support, and then you can get that from there. Not .com, .support, because that's what I really want to give you guys. So masteryourmoney.support. You can find that there.
Absolutely. Well, Cody, man, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, man. Can you tell us where we could find you, where we could book you, all throughout
Mhm.
the internet stratosphere?
Yeah, well, I think that, I mean, first and foremost, like that webinar would be a great place to start,
Okay.
so you can find that there, and if you like what you hear and you want to talk to me, there's a button to where you can book a call with me like directly. So you're
Hmm.
more than welcome to do that. If you want to just check me out, I have a couple social media. It's just Sizemore Financial Coaching on Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. So just type me in there, and you can kind of like look at the content that I have. I post a lot of different success stories and screenshots of clients texting me their updates and stuff like that. So you can see a lot of that kind of stuff too.
Well, Cody, man, it's been a pleasure, brother. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast, man.
Not a problem, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, guys, God bless.
Ain't it all? Couple dollars in my pocket, no income and go. Been working on my body, getting healthier. Thank God for